Welcome to the deep dive. You know that awful feeling, that gut-wrenching shame when a big goal, especially something really personal like weight loss, just seems to slip away.
Yeah,
And you're left thinking, I'm broken or I'm weak. Maybe I'm just not disciplined enough. It feels like, well, like this isn't for me. It's such a heavy burden, isn't it?
it really is. And that belief, it can burrow deep, become part of how you see yourself.
Mm.
A story that's incredibly tough to shake off. It really sticks.
Absolutely. But what if there was another way to look at it? A different voice, someone with a really unique perspective who could help reframe that whole experience of failure,
Mm.
moving you past the shame, the self-blame, into a place of, well, understanding and maybe even growth.
Okay.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the insights of Dan Hollis. We're drawing from his teachings all the work surrounding his unique philosophy.
Yeah, and our mission here is really to unpack what Dan Hollis taught about failure, about weight loss, and interestingly, about the role of newer tools like semaglutide.
Right.
We want to show how his ideas can fundamentally shift, not just, the physical journey, but your whole relationship with messing up, with setbacks, and really with who you think you are. We've pulled together the most important nuggets from our sources to help you get a really solid handle on this transformative perspective.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
For so many people, the standard story around failing at weight loss is just painful.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I used to think any slip up, any little mistake meant I wasn't cut out for it, that deep down I was weak or undisciplined, broken even. It's a really heavy story we tell ourselves.
It is. But what's so interesting is how Dan Hollis just completely flips that script.
How so?
Well, he taught that failure isn't the end. It's actually a message, like a moment of feedback.
Feedback.
Yeah, feedback. And he even said, sometimes it's the most honest conversation you'll ever have with yourself. He just didn't see failure as this big, shameful thing.
So not a moral failing, but data.
Exactly. Like a data point, something you observe, you learn from, you build on, not something you need to hide from or feel ashamed about.
That's a big shift. Seeing it as data, not a judgment on your character. How did he apply that feedback idea to something like relapse? Because that can feel absolutely devastating.
Right. Well, he reframed that too. He saw relapse not as some kind of betrayal of all your progress.
Which is how it usually feels.
Totally. But he saw it as the brain asking for the old familiar rhythm.
Mm.
He taught that if you just ignore that request, if you just push it down, you don't just fail, you actually fracture.
Fracture, that's a strong word.
It is. It's a powerful distinction, isn't it? It reminds us to actually listen, to pay attention to what our body and mind are signaling.
Okay, so if a setback happens, it's not proof you're flawed. It's actually an opportunity for insight.
Precisely. Which connects directly to another key teaching of his. Setbacks are sacred if you're willing to look at them with curiosity instead of judgment.
Curiosity, not judgment. That's huge. He put it so bluntly, too, didn't he? It's something about perfection.
Oh, yeah. He said, the shame isn't in failing. The shame is in pretending you were supposed to be perfect.
Wow.
Yeah. For him, finding grace wasn't about blaming yourself more. It was about reaching for a better tool or a better way of understanding what happened, not just piling on more blame.
That really is a significant shift. It makes you question the whole narrative you've built around your struggles. What kind of questions did he encourage people to ask about those internal stories?
He really pushed people to ask themselves, what story am I telling myself about this failure?
Okay.
And then, critically, and is that story helping me become who I want to be? It moves you from just internalizing blame to actively looking at and potentially rewriting your own narrative.
Which brings us to a tool that often gets misunderstood in this whole area. Semaglutide, the medication people are talking about for weight management.
Right, GLP-1s.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when we hear about it, we usually think about the science, right? How it affects hunger signals, blood sugar, that kind of thing.
The mechanism.
But Dan Hollis really challenged us to look beyond just the biology, didn't he? To see its maybe deeper purpose.
He absolutely did. He talked about listening to the silence that semaglutide can create.
Silence.
Yeah. Think about it. If food has always been your comfort, or maybe just constant background noise, or like your co-pilot through life, then you understand how profound it is when that constant chatter suddenly goes quiet. Semaglutide can sometimes do that. But Dan's key insight was about what you do with that quiet space.
So it's not just about the drug silencing the noise, but about the opportunity that silence creates.
Exactly. He taught that the real work begins when the cravings stop. That's when the truth shows up.
Truth shows up. But
That's the moment when you actually have the mental and maybe the emotional bandwidth to design a new system for yourself, a new way of operating.
so, in his view, semaglutide wasn't the solution itself.
No, not the whole solution. He emphasized it's not a solution, but a pause, a breather, a
Okay.
reset.
So,
Yeah, it creates this crucial space for self-discovery, for rebuilding. It lets you step back from that constant internal noise about food.
okay, so it's less about willpower then, because
Yeah.
that's the message we usually get, right? Just try harder, have more willpower,
Not really his focus, no. Dan actually said he doesn't sell willpower, he exposes it.
exposes it. What does that mean?
He laid out the truth, as he saw it, about why many people struggle long term. It's often not because the drug doesn't work, but because no one helped them rewrite the rituals that define their identity.
Ah, their rituals, the identity piece again.
Exactly. The habits, the routines, the things that make you you.
So, given all that, how did he tackle the idea that using something like semaglutide is, well, cheating? That perception is definitely out
Oh,
there.
we challenged that head on, powerfully. He taught semaglutide isn't cheating, it's adaptation.
Adept.
Yeah. And then he added, the real cheat is pretending willpower was enough. He saw it as a legitimate modern tool, a way to adapt to our current environment, not some kind of shortcut to avoid doing the real work. The work still needs doing.
Okay, by connecting this back to the bigger picture then, Dan Hollis was really saying weight loss isn't just about hitting a certain number on the scale.
Not at all.
He taught it's not about chasing a number, it's about building a life where food isn't your only coping tool.
Precisely. He framed it like this. You didn't lose control. You lost connection.
Connection.
Connection to your hunger cues, to your purpose, to yourself. That's what we help you rebuild. It's this really profound idea about reconnecting, not just restricting.
And it's not just about stopping things, is it? We often focus so much on what we can't eat or shouldn't do. But Dan seemed focused on what you add in. What does that rebuilding actually look like?
That's a great point. He taught that every pound lost means a habit must be replaced, not just removed.
Replaced, not just removed.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. He believed that while biology might give you a head start, only identity keeps you moving. That's where the lasting change comes from.
So for someone listening, this means what? Actively creating new routines.
Exactly. Active designing new ways to comfort yourself, new ways to handle stress, new ways to connect with yourself and others that don't automatically revolve around food. It's about consciously building the person you want to become step by step.
That identity piece feels so crucial because, like, our bodies can change pretty quickly sometimes, especially with help.
Right.
But our internal sense of self, our identity, might take a lot longer to catch up.
Definitely. He talked about that lag. He said, fast results don't mean lasting ones, and maybe more importantly, the scale doesn't measure self-trust.
Oof, that hits home.
Yeah. And he warned pretty directly, if you don't actively plan for life after semaglutide or during that pause, well, it will plan for you, meaning old patterns will just rush back in to fill the void.
That brings up the whole question of pace then. He seemed wary of just focusing on speed.
Very much so. You'd always say, your body changes fast. Your identity takes time to catch up. This focus on the internal transformation, rather than just how quickly the pounds come off, is really key to his whole philosophy. You got to give your inner story time to align with the outer changes.
Okay, so we've talked about reframing failure, using tools like semaglutide as a pause for deeper work. These are really profound shifts. But even with all this understanding, that fear of setbacks, of falling back, it's still huge for people.
Of course, it's natural.
How did Dan Hollis help people navigate those moments, those inevitable bumps in the road?
Well, first he normalized them. He taught that setbacks are predictable, not shameful. They're basically signals you're human, not evidence that you're lazy or broken.
So signals.
Yeah, signals that your body and brain are trying to recalibrate. It's a natural part of the process, really. A moment to learn something.
And he had a really interesting take on what's actually going on during a setback, didn't he? It wasn't always just about hunger.
Right. He taught that most people don't relapse into hunger. They relapse into confusion.
Confusion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That distinction is vital. It helps you understand what's really happening. It might not be a physical craving driving you back to old habits, but maybe disorientation from new routines, or encountering an old trigger unexpectedly, or just not knowing what to do in that moment.
That makes sense. He also offered that great analogy, the one to sort of reframe the whole journey, the staircase.
Ah, yes, the spiral staircase. He said weight loss isn't usually a straight line up. It's more like a spiral staircase. Sometimes it feels like you're going in circles, but you're still climbing.
That image alone can be so helpful when you feel like you're stuck or going backwards.
Absolutely. And think about plateaus, too. So many people see a plateau as failure, a defect.
Yeah, why isn't it working anymore?
Exactly. But Dan would say, no, that's likely your body catching up. He even called it your metabolism asking for grace, a necessary pause for your system to adjust.
Metabolism asking for grace. That's a beautiful way to put it. And what about when those old cravings, those old habits just roar back? That feeling of weakness can be so defeating. What was his perspective on that?
He talked that it's not weakness, it was memory.
Memory.
Yeah, like a neural path lit up, asking if it still mattered. The real power, he believed, isn't in never having the thought, but in your ability to answer differently now, to see the old path light up, acknowledge it, and consciously choose a different response.
So a setback doesn't automatically mean the medication stopped working or that you've failed at everything you built. What does it really point to then?
It often means simply that the story you were telling yourself still needs updating.
Back to the story.
Always back to the story. Dan taught people how to narrate a setback as a question, not a judgment.
What kind of questions?
Questions like, okay, what am I feeling right now? What do I actually need? And fundamentally, who do I want to become in response to this?
Hmm.
Asking those questions means you're learning, not losing.
That reframing from judgment to question seems central, which I guess brings us to what feels like the ultimate principle Dan Hollis was teaching. You don't maintain weight loss or any big change, really, just with discipline. You hold on to it with alignment.
That is the absolute core of it.
Hmm.
He described this process, this healing, as something that isn't flashy, it's quiet, it's intentional.
Hmm.
He called it the slow layering of new choices, new thoughts, and new systems, all built during that sacred window, that pause, perhaps created by something like semaglutide.
Hmm.
It's about building a life that genuinely aligns with your deeper goals and values.
Wow. That feels like a really powerful place to wrap up this part of the dive. Dan Hollis's big message, it seems, is that this kind of journey isn't about trying to become someone else entirely.
No,
It's about finally getting the space, the quiet, the tools to become more fully yourself. It's about what he called failing forward, using every stumble, every piece of feedback as a launch pad for what comes next.
exactly. So just to quickly recap the big takeaways from Dan Hollis's philosophy. Failure isn't the end, it's feedback. It's data. Semaglutide, or tools like it, aren't magic fixes, but potentially sacred pauses that create vital space.
Right.
And lasting change doesn't come from just white-knuckling it with discipline or obsessing over a number. It comes from deliberately rebuilding your identity and finding true alignment in your life.
Absolutely. And maybe as you're thinking about all this, here's a final thought to consider. If failure really is a message and setbacks are just opportunities to learn and recalibrate, how might approaching other parts of your life work differently? Your personal goals, challenges at work, maybe creative projects. What if you approach those with the same kind of curiosity, the same grace, and the same focus on rebuilding your identity and your story?
Yeah, have that change things.
Exactly. It makes you think, what stories are you telling yourself about your own missteps in any area of life? And are those stories actually helping you become the person you truly want to be?